I do believe there are dogs that are dangerous. Is it the dog's fault the dog is dangerous or vicious? He or she wasn't born vicious, because all dogs are good dogs. It's always the owner who made the dog into a bad dog or a vicious dog. But what's the definition of vicious anyway? Vicious might have its own legal definition. But it seems to me that the definition of vicious or dangerous is purely subjective, right? I mean, what I think is a vicious dog might be different than what you think is a vicious dog, and different than the person who was attacked by a dog when she was a child thinks is a vicious dog. In addition, maybe that dog's only dangerous in a given situation or environment or around certain kinds of people. We had a wonderful dog, Paco. Paco didn't like people who spoke the Spanish language. Paco was not a dangerous dog. Paco was not a racist dog. But we just made sure that the Spanish language was not spoken around Paco. And I'm just assuming Paco was abused by a person who spoke Spanish. And that's the point. If you know a dog is not comfortable in a given situation or environment, and or you do not approve of the dog's behavior in a given environment or around certain people or other dogs, you might have to make some adjustments in your lifestyle to keep your dog and your family and everyone around you safe and happy. It's not hard, maybe a little inconvenient, but so what? That's life, and that's what you do. So, we're talking about the definition of a dangerous dog. Purely subjective. And even shelters have their own definition of a dangerous dog. A lot of shelters have what's called temperament testing to determine if dogs are dangerous or vicious in certain situations. And other shelters don't use any sort of method of testing or evaluation. They might deem a dog vicious by the dog's bite history or whatever random, indiscriminate means they choose. And not all shelter employees are experienced with dog behavior. And you might just be dealing with a scared dog who was recently picked up off the streets and who was lost from his home. And that dog might very well cower in the corner or growl at anyone who enters his kennel. Or maybe the dog was in an abusive situation and again might not want to trust or be kind to you or any human initially. Are these vicious dogs? No, they're scared. And they're certainly not going to do well on any temperament test or any sort of evaluation given by a complete stranger. My own dogs, if lost from me and picked up and thrown into a loud, scary shelter cage, would likely fail any tests and might very well be deemed vicious or dangerous. And realistically, who's going to want to adopt a dog who is labeled vicious anyway? Yeah, the dog is probably not vicious by your standards, but you're not going to want to adopt that dog. And you certainly have to question the motives of the adopter who wants to adopt a dog labeled as vicious. What's he going to do with that dog? Use him as a fighting dog? Sell him to a research lab? I don't know. But the thing is, for the most part, from my experience, shelters don't adopt out dogs that they think are truly vicious. And it boils down to what your definition of vicious is. I know there are exceptions, okay? But I don't see shelters adopting out dogs that they think will turn around and hurt other people or animals. Now, having said that, there have been a few instances I'm aware of where dogs should not have been released to the public at the time they were. I'm not saying these dogs were vicious. What I'm saying is more training or socialization or rehabilitation should have been offered to that dog and then reassessed, establishing this dog is okay to be adopted out to a given person or family. And by the way, this is an entirely different topic we can talk about another time, but earlier in the show, the term no-kill shelter was mentioned. And you might know this already, but just because a shelter claims they are no-kill doesn't mean they never kill a dog. I know it might sound like a misleading term if a shelter describes itself as a no-kill shelter and they kill a dog, but some shelters might say they are no-kill, and that usually means they strive for that, okay? I mean, they might be situations where they do kill a dog, like if a dog is suffering and essentially untreatable, like a dog was hit by a car and has internal bleeding and broken bones and barely breathing. Of course, any humane shelter would euthanize that dog Now that's the real definition of euthanasia, by the way, taking an individual out of its misery. Now, I will tell you that what often happens in these no-kill shelter settings, since they strive not to kill animals unless they have to, unfortunately, you get some dogs and cats there in that shelter for a very long time, and they can develop extreme kennel stress and anxiety from their lengthy stays. Just like any individual cooped up in a small place with little stimulation for a long time will go a little stir-crazy. Again, this doesn't make the dog a dangerous dog. So what's the bottom line? Our country still has millions of homeless dogs and cats that are in need of a loving, forever home. We are still killing millions of unwanted animals in our shelters every year. Don't buy a dog from a breeder, okay? If you're wanting to add a dog or cat to your family, consider visiting your local shelter. Check out the animals just waiting there to be a part of your family. And if you end up adopting from a shelter, in all likelihood, you'll be saving a life. And that's a good thing. And dogs bite. And let's not conflate a dog that bites with a vicious or dangerous dog. My parents' little 12-pound rescued Maltese Chicklet would bite certain individuals who would approach my mother. Is Chicklet a vicious dog? No! Little fluffy white Chicklet is not a vicious dog and would never be labeled vicious. But if my mother had a pit bull and that same person approached her and the pit bull was trying to protect my mother, that's a different story. That dog's vicious. And we all know why this is the case. Number one, larger dogs can do more damage when they bite than smaller dogs, just on the basis of their size of their mouth and teeth. And number two, pit bulls have a bad rap. And that's because many people are misinformed about pit bulls. Given the same situation and under the same circumstances, why are certain dog breeds automatically deemed vicious and others are not? Two little dogs the size of a large rat have bitten the nose of one of our large dogs minding his own business. Who's the vicious one? Maybe no one. Dogs bite. A woman asked her veterinarian, "Is there any chance my dog will bite someone?" The veterinarian's response was, "Does it have teeth?"